Hello and welcome to Start the Beat with Sykes. My name is Sykes and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out the last episode. If you're one of those people, I hope you enjoyed the conversation and thanks so much for coming back. But for everyone out there who's new to the show, welcome. Feel free to make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer, soda, water, coffee in the fridge. Cheers to everyone out there. I'm curious to get everyone's thoughts about just like the time that it takes and how we've dealt with like being patient and blah, 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 blah. And like what it's been like for you just over, COVID shit aside, because even the year before that, we just had a lot of shit that was making it hard for us to operate. Right. So I don't know who wants to take the lead on this. Joey, you look like you may want to say something.
Oh, I guess I have, sort of the different dynamic compared to you guys that I have. I have a wife and a kid at home. Colt, you have kids too, but your kids are older and everything. I have a younger one that, it's hard to manage the time. So whenever we have a gig, it's like, okay, I can't just like go off and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, whatever. It's like, all right, well, I got to check, my wife's schedule. I got to check my daughter's schedule, what she's doing. And then if we figure it out, it's like, okay, well, who's doing what, who's staying home, or are we, shipping the kid off to grandma's or whatever. So that's one part of it. Is just managing all of that. And that's just scheduling a gig. Then it's like, all right, during the week, figuring out your personal time to still dedicate to, the other things. It's like, yeah, all right, well, I've got like how many ever days a week that I'm dedicating to the practice aspect of it, of just getting together and going through and trying to write. Where is the time to fit in just like inspiration and creativity and everything? That fitting that in gets difficult too. And then on top of that, you think about all of your schedules as well. It's like, yeah, maybe I happen to have one weekend where I'm totally free, and then everybody else kind of has their stuff going on. Managing that, managing full-time work on top of that. I went to college like the last 5 years, essentially.
Yeah.
Through all of this. So family, college, work, changing jobs, happened over the last couple of years, figuring all that out. And a band is so much more of a commitment than, I always say like joining like a sports team. Like, you could play the same songs for how many ever years and whatever, like saying essentially playing the same soccer or hockey game every Saturday for 10 years. But in order for it to still be interesting in a band, to me, it's like, all right, well, you got to keep writing and you got to keep those creative juices going. And it's so difficult to fit all of that in amongst just life.
Totally. The thing that you said about finding the time to like engage with like your creative brain, like I never really thought about that, but like as soon as you said it, I'm like, holy shit, like that's something that I've struggled with so much too, because it's like, it's when you're doing so much shit and I'm like, I'm busy thinking about X, Y, or Z. I'm not thinking about A, B, and C. And then finally it's like, oh shit, okay, now I got to get myself together and write vocals for this. It's like, well, what have I been inspired by? What have I been doing? The fuck am I going to write about my 40-hour work week? And we're not a country band yet,
Yeah.
So it's like, what the fuck do I write about? And it like makes it hard to find those things. And like, Evan, I'm curious, like, cause you're a busy motherfucker too. You always have been, what's like exploring creativity like for you?
Something that I've noticed is that it's almost like ignorance is bliss thing, but like a lot of people, they don't realize all the little fine details that go into being in a band, or there's like some misconception to some things, right? I'm gonna stay through the end of this show I'm going to watch the last band. People might think you're just there to have a beer and you're partying, but like you're watching the merch booth, you're selling merch, you're networking, you're setting up your next show, you're supporting the headliner who's your friend from out of town. You know what I mean? Like you're doing all these other things. It's not just like, I want to play the show. And a lot of people think you just went and like, no, like we loaded all of our gear out ourselves, which isn't light, and do a trailer. We had to figure out transportation and who was picking up the trailer and what time we were leaving. There's so much coordination. You know, if people could only see like our Slack messenger, yeah, there's plenty of jokes in the designated general non-band stuff section for sure. But that's part of why we do this. But like, there's a lot of tabs. Like there's a lot of like recording shows, show offers, videos, we're so fortunate to have your background and that you're helping us, you're always taking care of. I can't do the visual stuff. I'm at a loss. That's just not my thing. So there's also this teamwork and, back and forth. And you're like, hey guys, how do you think this looks? Just like I would be like, hey guys, here's this idea for a song. What do you think? And then we're also working together. And then, you're throwing things into a pot. So it's not like we're a solo act where we can just make all the calls and do everything right away and act immediately.
Yeah, it's not like you're writing all the songs and we're just waiting to learn them
right.
and do it.
We're all into it together and we work well together, and that's what makes it work. But there's so many fine details, and that's just a couple small examples of what it's like to be in a band, not to mention like pre-production and recording, and those are all totally separate kinds of skills. Recording is totally different than playing live. And there are great, wonderful, fun things about both of those things. And then there's difficult, hard, annoying thing, whatever about both as well that you just have to deal with and function with. No. And not every venue is the same. Your gear's not always going to react the same. So all of a sudden, like I would have never thought of myself as like a gearhead when I started and got into music, but I probably know more than I even accredit myself for just for having to do repairs or last minute repairs on my instrument or setting up my pedal board. Or it's a lot. Well, I mean, we're nerds, so we take it in well, and we're pretty smart gentlemen. But like,
but then the other thing that you kind of stumbled upon a little bit is, the idea of the teamwork and the idea that we're sort of in a thing that when you have creative minds that come together, it's like, well, everybody wants their creative piece heard, and then on top of that, it's like, you also have just normal friend dynamics and work dynamics, right? Like if you're working, I don't want to call this a job, but like you're loading gear in and out, stuff like that. There's a labor to it. So like if somebody is having a bad day and like, they kind of, aren't doing like pulling their weight, it's like you as, part of it have to sort of like emotionally check yourself and be like, not maybe irritated or like work your way through it. Like there's this thing that you have to work through as your friendships and relationships with an that make it difficult.
I think that, it's an oxymoron, a paradox of how us caring too much bites us in the ass sometimes.
Well, I was just going to say, take like everything that you guys said and now imagine 3 of us here are in multiple bands. So take all that and split that into a whole other group of people and a group of shows and a group of this and a group of that.
And I mean, Joey's played in multiple bands before, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I was playing with you for a while there, and then it was like, life caught up, and I was like, all right, you got to choose. Like there literally is only so much time.
And I think the thing that's like interesting too, which isn't probably unique to us, but it definitely affects our situation, is that all of us have, like, outside of the band and outside of our families and personal lives, we all have like day jobs that we take reasonably seriously that are very laborious and like very like task oriented and like very attention to detail. So like literally like every single aspect of our life is like focusing on little details. Like you can't fuck this up, you can't fuck that up, and there's no space to relax. And I think that part of, like, at least for me personally, with like the way that my work life is and everything, it bleeds into the band. I can deal with it, but there is like a certain weight that's put on your shoulders that when you're carrying it for years in this band doing this, it's like exhausting because it's fun, but it's a different kind of fun. I don't even know what like fun without scheduling or task managing is really. I have no idea. I can't even fucking like go to a fucking theme park without planning out like everything that I'm gonna fucking do or being in control of the situation.
We all like agendas.
Yeah, it's
like,
too
like,
fucking.
oh, here's how our day is gonna go.
Yeah,
Like at least not, it doesn't have to be down to the minute, but I think that's something we all enjoy. It's like, okay, we kind of like, yeah, we can putz around a little bit, but we have like at least a basic structure of it's like, oh well, we have to show up to the venue at least at this time to load in, and then this is when the show's going to start and everything. So it's like, all right, we have all these things, and then we just kind of just fill in the gaps, and that's kind of like the room for like, creativity, if you will, when it comes to just like how our days go.
Yeah. So, outside of the bands, some people, may have an idea of like who we are and what we do, whether how exciting or boring it is. But let's dig into it real quick. For anybody that doesn't know, I am the air quote production manager at Get Hip Records. And whenever I'm not stressing out over music that I'm releasing, I'm stressing out over music that other people are releasing. And that's what I do. Colt, what's your life like?
It's just for my job.
Yeah.
So I work for a company doing industrial design. So I'm basically taking other people's ideas and trying to make them real life ideas. And
that's not too dissimilar from what I do.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Joey, what's how you paying these fucking dumb bills?
I work in trash.
Same thing. All right.
No, it's always it's funny. Every job that I've worked, I always have to say it's complicated. And I always try and figure out like a 10,000 foot view to basically kind of explain what I do, because it always tends to be like I'm always wearing like 50 hats at once. But
sure.
It's essentially like trash and recycling service management. And I figure out contracts and quotes and all that kind of stuff for big apartment complexes and things like that. That's the 10,000 foot view of
somebody has to do it.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah,
somebody's got to deal with the trash.
Evan.
Well, I'm a brewer. I wanted to make a funny trash reference.
Do it.
I really like our beer, so
really
shout out to all my
really
my
trashed
friends.
your opportunity for that one.
Yeah, so I'm a brewer.
Yeah.
I work at Cinderlands. It's awesome. I brew beer and transfer beer and bottle beer and drink beer and
speaking of beer, this is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome beverages.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, certainly task oriented, like you said, and getting the numbers down on paper and making sure things line up and doing things through like the right procedures, because I can screw things up very easily
It's all
and
mathematical.
have a really tough day. And in my line of work, if I screw up, I generally deal with it physically. I've been covered in beer and hops and everything else. But it's fun. It's a cool mix between like blue collar stuff and art and intellectual stuff. So